Follow along on this three-part series of me rebuilding this 13-foot Boston Whaler Dauntless. It started out with a center console and we basically gutted the interior, put a new engine on it, and turned it into probably the most customized 13-foot Dauntless in existence. This is the original video of me purchasing the boat, and this was kind of what consisted of my sea trial. Didn't really need to do it since I had no intentions of using that crappy old Honda outboard, but I wanted to get a video of it anyway. And even with this old engine and in the terrible condition it was in, I was still completely hooked on this boat. Couldn't wait to get started. What's up, Bo Brettas? I just thought I'd take you on a little crazy adventure I'm about to go on, restoring and totally customizing a 1996 Boston Whaler Dauntless 13-footer. They're a pretty rare boat. You don't see them come on the market all that often. Whaler didn't make them for a real long time, and I don't really understand why. They're a really nice boat. I've been told they weren't really made all that long because of the costs involved in them, and they just ended up having such a high price point that people didn't really want to buy them for 13 feet. And for that kind of money, you could probably get something a lot bigger. So essentially, some of the things I like about it, which I'll explain to you, is it's got a pretty nice dead rise for a 13-foot boat. Now, there's no 13-foot boat that's going to ride like a dream because they're 13 feet. But as far as 13-footers go, it's not bad. And what I like about it is it doesn't have the traditional flat bow of the Whaler, but it's still rounded out at the top enough that you still have a lot of real estate inside. There's still a lot of deck space. The other thing I really like about this boat, and unfortunately you can't really see it from this angle, is it's got an incredible shear line. Very traditional. It doesn't look like a bathtub in a way. You can look at that rub rail and it rakes from the stern and goes up like a boat should. It's got nice lines. And the dead rise, I don't actually know the degree of dead rise at the transom here, which of course at 13 feet, when you're doing 20 knots, the boat's really riding right here. You know, forget what the bow looks like. This is what matters. And although it's not the steepest dead rise there is, you got to keep in mind in 13 feet, the steeper the dead rise, the tippier they are. And I've been in boats that have a little sharper of a V here, and you'll step on this corner and the whole thing dips underwater. So there's a compromise here, but this is a pretty good one. The other thing I liked about it was a swim step on here. Boston Whaler attempted to make a self-bailing boat. Really cool in concept, not all that practical when it came to putting it to use in reality here, because the water line is about right here. And they sit fine when there's nobody in the boat with a 50 horsepower 4-stroke on them. Here's your water line, you can see it actually. There it is, there's your scupper. And the water sits right about here. So as soon as you put somebody in the boat, these scuppers, which are not watertight by any stretch of the imagination, the water has a tendency to go back inside. And your decks are wet. And it sucks if you have a jacket down or you just harbor cruising in the middle of winter, you don't want wet shoes. So it was kind of a failed idea. Self-bailing works really good on boats that are a lot bigger than this. So one of the things we're going to be doing is actually filling these in and building in the sump box for a bilge pump with an automatic float on it. It'll make it a little bit more practical for real island use, the way we like to use our boats. In a nutshell, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to build a cooler / bait tank into this corner. We'll utilize this hole as a drain for that, so I don't have to do too much patching. We're going to build a sump box over there. We're going to get rid of this goofy, useless seat here in the middle, and we're going to build a bench seat across it, but lower than they normally come. Normally the bench seats sit on top of this thing here, and it's way too tall for the boat. You feel like you're sitting up on the rail, so we're going to put it to the appropriate height. I have driven this boat once when I went to buy it, and it's ridiculous. You got to sit here with your knees here and you're hunched over trying to reach to this wheel. It's an extremely awkward setup, and I think that may be part of the reason they didn't sell a lot of them. It's not exactly a comfortable boat to drive, but the characteristics of the handling are amazing. It banks like it's supposed to. I sold a Super Sport off of Calusa, and that was a miserable boat. There were so many things wrong with a Super Sport or a 13 Sport. I guess they're not a Super Sport. It was a 13 Sport. The back of the boat was higher than the center, which means that any water that came into it stayed at your feet. There was no sump built into it, so you couldn't pump the water out if you wanted to. It was a horrible design, and on top of that, when you would turn, the boats would run like they were on a roller coaster track. There was no banking. And this boat, when you turn, as a boat should, it banks. And it feels really good. And the 13 Sport doesn't have a well, so any water that comes over the back of the boat when you're backing down, or if a weight comes over, because of course they're lower at the engine, comes right into the boat. And this, of course, as a good boat is designed, has a well that drains to the outside. So there's a lot of good features about this boat. It's a really good starting point. And we're gonna get started tearing this thing apart, including getting rid of the old 4-stroke Honda, getting rid of this goofy seat, getting rid of the console. And one of the things about this console is it's actually built up. So this is gonna be a little bit of work when it comes to having a glass the decks in a little bit differently, but I've already gone through the process of unscrewing this here, and we're finding rust. I don't know where that's coming from. The battery normally sits inside here, and there's a chase that goes from there around to right there, where the cables and everything come out of the deck. I'm gonna do my best to utilize that chaseway with the new console, but here's a problem. I have to grind this off because this console is not gonna sit in the same spot. The console is gonna be a side console, so you have a lot more room in the boat, and it's a lot easier to fend off and come alongside of a yacht and hang on to it while your guests depart, instead of having to sit in the middle of the boat. It doesn't really work for that. And we're gonna add another bench across the front here, because as it sits right now, this is a 2-seater boat. You'll sit one person there and one person there, and you can put a cooler in front of here, but that's kind of awkward, because the reality is when you're cruising anywhere in open ocean, open water, no one sits on the bow. It's not a good place. You can't hang on to a beer. It doesn't work. So we're gonna add in a full beam bench seat across the back and a full beam bench seat in front of the new side console. These rails are gonna go away. We're gonna make new rails. We're gonna make a tow post on it. It's gonna be pretty fun. And I'll show you some of the process of what I'm gonna do. So this is the forward hatch. One of the first things that I have to do, we're gonna be painting this. I'm gonna paint this gel coat. There's 1,000 holes in it, from rails and bimini tops and old bimini tracks. I don't even know what this is for. I mean, it's a bimini track of some sort. More bimini holes, and probably from old tanks that might have sat in here. There's a lot of stuff that's not right here. We got screws that have to come out, and holes that need to be filled. So the thing's gonna go to a paint shop, and what I need to do first is I need to take everything off the top. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip the boat over, put it back on its trailer, and I'm gonna send it to a paint shop. And we're gonna paint it from the rub rail down. And we're gonna basically finish this part of it. Once it's finished, we flip the boat back over, and then I start to build out the inside, because I don't want to build out the inside, send it to paint, and then have to turn the boat upside down with a bunch of finished product in it. But here's kind of an issue with these things, as I know from experience approaching swim steps. It's this. It's really in an awkward spot, really kind of front and center, almost proud, is the towing eye. And I don't know why they put it up here. It really, in my opinion, should have been down here out of the way, coming up against the dinghy dock or against a swim step, dropping people off from the bow. Granted, you don't intend on hitting something, but you never know when you're gonna have a gale come through or a little squall, and There's been plenty of times where we've had to drop people off in 3 or 4 foot chop on the swim step, and last thing I want is a sword sticking off the front of the boat that's gonna screw something up. So we're gonna tuck this thing down here further and get it out of the way. And I actually think make the boat look a little better, because away from the dock, that tow eye is really awkward looking. That leads to a second problem. This boat is going to be lifted onto the top deck of Calusa with a davit and a bridle. So right now this is well backed. It's right through the stem, and we've got both bolts with the backing plate right there for lifting. So with that going away, I'm going to put the tow eye down here, which will work for a tow eye and for when I put onto a trailer occasionally. But that doesn't really work for lifting, because I'll have the cushion here and I'm not lifting this boat up with the hatch up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of backing plates inside here, and we'll do a couple of smaller eye bolts here and there. And a 4-point bridle is going to be a lot safer than a 3-point bridle, because they get a little less tippy. So that'll be an easier pick point right there. Not exactly the cleanest look. I'd like to see those bolts there, but it'll be practical for being a top deck tender. I've seen the attachment points under here. If you're not aware, stainless steel and aluminum hate each other around saltwater. They react, create electrolysis, and they like to fuse together. Well, I couldn't exactly heat these things up because we're right against the fiberglass here, so just a couple of quick attempts to pull the screws out of the deck, and they've already stripped. A couple of them came out along with a good portion of the aluminum, but a couple of them aren't. So we're gonna probably end up having to cut those off and then drill them out, unfortunately. And so the headaches begin. Quick tip, I don't think I have ever taken a wheel off of a skiff that wasn't completely frozen in place. It either takes a torch and a hammer, and definitely one of these. If you work on boats at all, if you work on anything, you should have a wheel puller. These things work great. It popped right off. Luckily, this one didn't need any heat, and voila. But most of these wheels are made out of either pot metal or aluminum on the center hub there, and these are usually made out of steel. And both those metals are probably the worst product you could ever use around the saltwater. And why manufacturers are still using zinc and steel is beyond me. That should be a stainless shaft or a bronze shaft. The entire rim of most wheels is stainless, and why they can't make the center out of stainless as well. Gotta buy more wheels, right? So it's kind of something nice to do for the next guy. And I don't know if everyone does this, but every wire in here has been mated up with its buddy inside on the gauges and with each other, and I think it's something that should be done. Makes it easier. Simple thing to do. You know, we're just taking the controls apart now. It's funny, this is actually a Yamaha controller. I don't know if this boat had a Yamaha on it one time, or if they just piecemealed this thing together and got whatever parts they could find. There we are. I release you. Get everything disconnected, hopefully. A console. All right, now what to do with it? All right, let's see what we got here. All right, we got a first look here at what I am dealing with. I haven't seen this before. All right, so Boston Whaler, that's more than likely where they filled the foam in this thing, topped it off. So this doesn't sound all that robust. I think this is not going to be a problem. We're going to grind this off, glass this in. The new console is going to end about here, and we'll put a seat in across here, so you still have enough leg room in front of that to be able to sit. And the console, as I'm planning on it, is going to end midship. So it'll be a side console, as I stated earlier, from here over to the side, which is enough room for a wheel and some switches and maybe a small MFD. And I've got some ideas on how that's going to be built. Build that out of Kuza. So let's see what we got here. And next step, I'm going to save this stupid thing for last because that's going to get messy. Let's start to take the engine off. Well, with the console gone, I was just walking down the driveway here to get kind of a first glimpse at this thing without that stupid looking thing in the center. And what a great looking hull. They really had it right on this one. I mean, look at that. It's like, it's got lines and it's very open. But yeah, we got our work cut out for here. Definitely on this thing. All right. While I'm working on this, you know, you want to see how crazy I am, Bretta's. I'm also cutting another boat in half. Well, I've already cut it in half, and I'll share what I did with that first half later, but this is a whole nother project I got going on right now. The hard part's done. No, the hard part's not done. The hard part's only halfway there. I don't know why I said that. I got a lot of work to do here too. 2 projects. We have been hard at it. When I say we, I mean me has been hard at it. I have been hard at it. But we've made great progress. Check this out. Now, but we've been at it for, I've been at it for, I don't know, 4 hours. And I have managed to turn a $10,000 boat into a $500 bucket. So we're all out. Engine's been disconnected. It is just hanging here for right now. So yeah, here we go. Start filling some holes and we'll get her into paint. Hey Bretta's, it is Friday. Got a fun evening planned, but in the meantime, working on boats. Check out what I got going on. I have finished dismantling all the miscellaneous hardware in here, and I'm really starting to paint a picture in my brain of what I want this thing to look like. And a couple of things I'm considering are bait well / cooler on this side here, utilizing the old self-bailing ports here. I'll put a smaller tube in here, 1-inch standard plug, and still utilize this trough here for a drain. It works, why not use it? I'll just keep a plug in it. And I'm considering whether to flush the hatch out of the cooler with the deck here or let the thing sit down a little level here. And I think it'd be cleaner to have it set up flush with this here. A little more modern, sleek. And I'm considering duplicating that same idea on this side here so it's symmetrical. And also, when you're jumping on the boat from another boat, you can step onto a little platform here. I think it'd be really nice. This is going to become the bait well.
Build sump, not bait well.
On these, had these guys, and they were meant to be waterproof, and your cabling and shift cables and steering cables all went up to your center console right there and came out right here, and of course went up to your engine. Well, that's going away along with everything else, and we're going to use this notch as a sump because of course it's not going to be self-bailing anymore. Went through the issues with that on these boats. Great idea and concept, doesn't work in reality on a 13-footer. So I'm going to notch this out, and we're going to get this existing channel here, which is nicely glassed in. Don't touch it if you don't have to. And we're going to get it to drain into the sump. And we'll do a nice little grate or something on here. I haven't 100% decided that, but that's the plan for that. Here's my helper thing I want to do is put a real cleat on the bow of this boat. For some reason, the 13 Dauntless didn't have a cleat built in. You know, the older whalers had a cleat up here, and this just has an eye. This is the classic whaler interior eye. And it's great if you want to tie a bowline on it, but it doesn't really work, especially with the elevation of your cushion in here. It really buries this thing. So I think I've explained before that this is a terrible location for that. So we're going to drop that down here. And with that, I'm going to be able to put a cleat on here. And this will be real easy to tie a boat up to easily, conveniently. And what we're going to do is we're going to through bolt it. So we're going to go on the outside here with a couple of carriage bolts and a union inside here. So I could put a flat head or an oval head on that and it'll be real clean. But obviously you don't want to be screwing onto this with any kind of a wood screw. It'll hold a little bit, but I wouldn't trust it for a cleat, especially if it starts getting rough, because you know, fiberglass on these whalers are chopper shot. It's not matte, and it's obviously very strong, but not real strong when you're just talking about a few screws. So we're going to through bolt it. The previous owner did me some great favors and decided to 5200 a lot of his hardware onto the boat, and there's a glimpse of that chopper shot material just kind of pulls apart. So we got a few repairs that we got to make, along with about 10,000 holes that need to be filled. All right, we are burning the midnight oil here, and I want to show you the difference between the stock goofy looking bow eye they put on these things and the new and improved classic styled Boston Whaler bow eye. So not only is this going to be way more practical as far as functionality, you're not going to have this dock and swim step breaker sticking off the bow there, but it also looks way better. So the inside here, this is where it used to attach, and it's going to now be completely concealed underneath the bow hatch here. So this is just kind of sitting here for now, but that's a nice improvement. As we are still working on the whaler here today, we are infilling the bow eye. So we've got the old eye hatched in here, and the new eye is going to get a little additional backing. That's the that's that old U-bolt that was in there, and this is the new eye that's going to be going in its place. A little bit nicer, right? So we've taped off the hole on the outside, and I have cleaned out the inside of the hole and the edges of fiberglass so I can get a good bond. This is a nice little tool to do that. It's a drill bit, but you can kind of router out your edges a little bit inside there. So we're just filling this thing with some West Systems, and we're just going to basically pour it in the hole. And you don't want to do too much at a time. I'd like to fill this up all the way and be done with it, but the problem is the West Systems in big batches will get hot and basically turn to foam. So we're going to do maybe about halfway, 3/4 of the way. This is 2 pumps, which is a little more I'd like to cook off in one time, but I'm hoping because these tubes are thin enough that it shouldn't be an issue. We'll see. Waiting for that bow eye to cook off that epoxy in there. We are going to start to work on removing this bow, drain, and installing something that drains into the deck. So another design flaw, what I feel like is in this boat and a lot of whalers, is they drain these forward hatches outside. And yeah, it's above the water line. That's great when you're not moving, but you know, you keep this boat trailing off your transom or towing it or underway or using it, and by any way, this has to have a plug in it because water shoots in there and fills up your forward box. So if you've got life jackets or you know, you just have an anchor and chain in there, it's gonna constantly get water shooting up inside. And I actually had one where the water was shooting up inside under the hatch and water was coming out, and it was just a mess. It was stupid. So you had to keep a plug in it. And the problem is you're washing the boat down, a wet dog jumps on board, and she's dripping wet and the water all goes down to the hatch here, and now you got a bathtub up here. So this doesn't work. The old whalers had it right. They had drain holes for their forward anchor lockers onto the deck, and the water goes aft and it drains out. So we're going to infill this. We're going to use this divot here as kind of a well, and we're going to install one of those guys. I had a couple of ideas on this. One was to install a through hole because it would look really nice on the outside. The problem with that is you got the nut on the inside that's kind of cumbersome and bulky and not really what I wanted. So these guys work pretty good. They're usually made for like transom wells or deck drains. Here's a grass version of it from West Marine. I've bought this for a couple different other ideas on the boat, and it's not going to work for here anyway. So these guys are really cool. This one's by Sea Choice, and they snap together. Most of these snap together. They're really little ridges, and you push them together, and they will come apart, not real easily. So the idea is you get your hole, which we're going to drill out to 1.25 inches, both sides, and we're going to slide these together with some probably 4200 in around it and bed it in. And the water that goes in there now will drain out onto the deck and into the sump aft, and we're going to fill that guy. So another improvement in my opinion. So I just started chiseling this thing out of here, and just kind of fell out, and along with it a lot of water. So this is not really good when you have water in your hull. Another reason this is a stupid idea. So we're gonna fix that though. Let that dry out. I plan on infilling that hole tonight, but that is not gonna happen anymore. So let that cook off a little bit before we seal it up. Every boat project, it's a little trial and error, and what I thought was going to be a large enough tube for this tapers quite a bit at the bottom here and on the inside. And overall, the tube I bought is 4.5 inches. And well, that doesn't fit in there either, but essentially I measured it with a screwdriver, and it's about that long, which is about 7 inches, 7.5 inches. So I've got to abandon that stupid idea, and we are going to now instead glass in a fiberglass tube, which honestly is going to be a lot cleaner on the outside anyway. So that'll be step 2 of this project. First step went failure. The first step was a failure. So yeah, anyway, let this dry out for a few days. Got some airflow going through it now. It's supposed to warm up, and once that's in, we'll glass the tube in, we'll fill this in and fur this in all at the same time. All right, I couldn't find a boat that didn't have bottom paint on it, so we're in the process of stripping it. There's that through hole that we took out. It's drying up. I'm gonna continue to let it dry before I infill that one. I figure the paint stripper is a good way to start before we start grinding. Progress. Good job, Brahino. You always find the old repairs underneath the bottom paint. Looks like this one doesn't have too many issues. Pretty good. Probably kill the grass. Got my helper. He gets sidetracked pretty easily. Yep, he's done. He just quit on the job. You know these kids. Wasting water. Well, I fired my last helper, wash boy. He didn't do a very good job. He's napping. Here we go. Kind of finally get to see the bottom here a little bit. Old transducers that were on here, so with all that paint off, all these got to get filled. Not sure what was here, but same sort of deal. This is the first self-bailing hole I filled, so it's just rough filled. So we're going to grind this down, put some glass over it, and then ferret out. So it's nice and solid, not just a glue infill. And same with this one here. That's the other side. This one is going to end up being a drain, so we'll do a 1-inch ID pipe through here, and that'll be won't really be a garber, but just a rubber stopper for when the thing's sitting up on top deck, and for the cooler. Watch that. This isn't for when it's sitting up on top deck. This is for the bait tank / cooler. This is what's going to be the drain plug for when it's on top deck. And what's really odd is The bottom of the boat has absolutely no patches on it except for right here, right where I need to put a through hole in. So I don't know if these boats originally had that. I haven't looked inside close enough, but we're gonna take this patch apart because it wasn't very well done. We're gonna clean that up. And it might even be a little easier to tackle this while it's here as well. So we're able to finish all of it, but the rest of this will just grind. Good though. So we are on step 2 here of stripping the bottom. First we've done the liquid stripper and it gets 90% of it. There's still a lot of heavy stuff in here, and amazingly the bottom actually has a lot of moss. It's stained the gel coat on here, so we just got a rotary vibrate sander and things happen. So we are gonna start cleaning this up. Come on in here and check this out. Look at the difference between everything that's been sanded and everything that hasn't. So it's coming down to clean gel coat, and we're gonna do this all the way up to the rub rail so we have good adherence from the primer, which will be the next step. And of course, with this process, we find even more scars, more of the hidden things that all boats seem to possess. Luckily, so far, nothing catastrophic, except for that one we've already looked at. There's that one in fill. We'll be putting a plug in there, and we're gonna glass it over. This is a video. It's for boat brothers. My neighbor Jay, he's come over with some 60 grit. The 100 was nice, but the 60's better. Too shabby. We started with 100 grit and we switched to 60. I'm probably gonna end up having to hit it one more time with some 100 to get some of the roughs out of it, but the 100 was not going real far. And that entire thing was 2 discs. So we're making good progress. We got a little yin and yang going on here. So we're working on the Whaler today. It's been a while, kind of been busy with Calusa lately, but we're starting to infill everything. We're using like 403 with West Systems as an adhesive filler, and then we're laying glass in over the top of it. Of course, these will get ferred out, but bottom has been stripped. There's the one surprise we found. There was a little bit of bad glass in there, so I cleaned that up. There's one of the self-bailing holes that's been glassed up. I just got some rough 403 over because I had a little left over, fill in a couple holes first, and we'll use microlight to eventually ferret out the rest of the way. That corner of the swim step had some damage to it, so it's been glassed up. It's all very rough right now, but we are entering the next stages here, now that this is done, of doing some fairing work and finishing work. Back at it again. Here comes the really obnoxious and tiring process of scraping off decals. A little heat would probably help, but it's really just some striping. Shouldn't take long. get the CF numbers off of here, get the Whaler logo off of there, and we should be rolling away. Okay, I've rolled down the hill. I'm in my new location. The boat is now uphill of me, and I'm gonna put some brakes in my chair. You think it's going to come off real nice, and then it leaves all the glue behind. Nothing's fast about working on a boat. If you think it's going to take an hour, you better plan it all day. If you think it's a 5-minute project, it's going to take several hours. Well, it's looking pretty clean. Dog brain got a lizard. We're ready to start sanding and put some finishing touches on here before it goes off to paint. I gotta turn these around because now I need them for lifting the boat from the inside. And I don't want to put a second set in there. Oh, nasty. So it's been a while since I've been working on the Whaler. We're going to get back into it today, and we're just getting ready for tomorrow painting. I've been under this tree here, and it's made a mess of this. Luckily, this is all going to get sanded again here, but everything's been filled. We've got our new plug-in, and right now, I figure this is the time to do it. We're gonna pull off the old rub rail. Now, I know for a fact that Whaler does not make this rub rail anymore, so we're gonna get something similar. But we're starting out by pulling the inner piece out, and then we're gonna go through and pull every screw out. And they did a great job of fastening this thing together with a screw every 4 inches on center. So this is gonna be a bit of work. Pull this off. There's just a little bit of glue below it, and it's just kind of peeling right off pretty easily. So I hope the new one goes on as well as this one. I was really contemplating not doing this, but I figure with the time and money I'm putting into this boat, what's one more little project into it? Because the top of this is a little worn. It's a little sun damaged, so I think a nice shiny new piece of rub rail will look a lot better. Here's something interesting. I didn't realize Whaler still did this. I thought they might have run a conduit in their foam by now, but apparently the forward running lights are still run inside the rub rail. So that's something Whaler used to do a long time ago on the original Boston Whalers, and they're still doing it, well, at least as of the early 2000s. So at first I was wondering how they ended up aligning all these screws up with a pre-drilled hole in the fiberglass without wrecking it. Pulled one out, and lo and behold, they are self-tapping screws. So that's what I'll have to go back with, and that'll make life much easier.